This series was based on the world of pirates, where pirates live. In Logtown 22 years ago, they were gathered to see the execution of the king of pirates, Gold Roger. This person wasn't scared of death. Instead, he knew many pirates would be born after his death. Before his death, one of the pirates inquired about his treasure. Then he responded to them to explore the sea and find themselves. Listening to this, the crowd became uncontrollable, and guards killed him by penetrating the swords. After this, many pirates who wanted to have the treasure of Gold Roger were born. One of them was Monkey D. Luffy, who was in the East Sea in his shabby boat. It was his first day throwing water out of the ship, and it was surprising that he didn't know how to swim. His only dream was to grab one piece, which meant he wanted to acquire Gold Roger's treasure and become king of pirates. During daydreaming, a flood of water started coming into his boat, so he hid inside the box, flowing into the sea. When he woke up, it was the following day when two ships were throwing cannons at each other. The captain of one of the ships was a woman, Alvida, who wanted to eliminate her rival with her own hands. So she jumped to the other ship through rope and started massacring the people, but could not find her prey, Roronoa Zoro. Alvida also killed one of the opposite pirates with her weapon because her name wasn't on his Roronoa Zoro list. Also, she called Kobe to wipe out her mess. Without complaint, Kobe arrived and started cleaning. At night, when Kobe was washing her weapon, he heard an intruder's voice was none other than Luffy. Luffy asked him not to shout and pretend to be the future king of pirates, but Kobe refused to consider him a pirate. According to him, pirates were cruel, and Luffy was not like them. In flashback, we look at young Luffy, who knew Shank, captain, would arrive. That's why he came out of his place and met with him. Luffy asked him if he could be a pirate, but Shank knew this way could be challenging. Therefore, he didn't allow him, but Luffy moved to the high place and put the dagger near his eye. He had proved that he would become a pirate in the future. Just then, Luffy shared his plan to move to the Grand Line, where the most dangerous creatures were. But Luffy was not terrified and was chilled, as if none would harm him. Watching his innocence, Kobe helped him escape from here before Alvida awakened. But Luffy accidentally rang the bell, which awoke everyone. On Sixis Island, Roronoa Zoro lit candles to remember his loved ones. Just then, Mr. Seven arrived and asked him to join his Baroque work, but he declined, and an iconic war started. Roronoa Zoro turns him into two pieces by swinging his sword. In Alvida's ship, Alvida arrived here in a pissed mood, and one of her subordinates shot at Luffy, but this bullet didn't harm him. Instead, it jumped back to the shooter. Further, Alvida used her weapon to harm him, but it bounced back. None could hurt him, and he was bored with this fight. So, he expanded his hand, which humans couldn't do, and gave a solid punch to Alvida, which threw her out of the ship. Now, none dared to challenge him, and Luffy brought Kobe with him and set on the journey with the boat. Kobe was shocked about his flexible body, so he inquired about him. The scene jumps to the past, where Shank was bandaging Luffy's wound and hopeful he would be a great pirate. When Shank moved outside, Luffy looked at the box where there was a devil fruit he had eaten. At the same time, another pirate arrived and provoked Shank to fight by dropping the drink and other pots. But Shank stayed calm, which made Luffy angry. When Shank tried to calm him down, he held his hand, which expanded. On their boat, Kobe shared his dream of serving people by adopting the profession of marina. Luffy admired him and also decided to leave him to Marine Base, where he would get a map of the Grand Line. On the other hand, another character was seen in miserable condition on the boat. She was pretending because she wanted to have another ship that tried to rob her equipment, but she was 10 steps ahead of them. In Shellstown, Marine's branch, they were seated in the cafe where everyone was busy drinking. Roronoa Zoro and Nami were already there. Nami was flirting with Marine, and Roronoa Zoro talked with a sweet girl who had prepared rice balls for Roronoa Zoro. Suddenly, a scoundrel encountered her, dropped her rice ball, and insulted the girl. Roronoa Zoro tasted crushed rice balls and asked this scoundrel to apologize to a girl, but he didn't. As a result, Roronoa Zoro started beating the Marine with his elegant moves. Apart from this, Nami bashed Marine's head on the shelf and put on his uniform. Also, Scoundrel was the son of Captain Morgan, so he didn't kill him because he would take him to his father for a reward. Watching their fight, Luffy was inspired by him. When he reached him, Captain Morgan was impressed with him and asked him to join, but he refused. Now he has two choices: face the penalty to beat Marine or join him. Marines preferred to stay 7 days hungry as punishment. At night, Luffy called Kobe to prepare the boat until he returned because he had found a way to get inside. In the morning, Luffy got outside the tunnel and looked at Roronoa Zoro, who was bound, and Morgan's son tried to torture him by saying his father wouldn't leave him. Luffy, who was already impressed by him, unbound him. Also, he knew Roronoa Zoro could kill him because he was a renowned pirate hunter. The scene shifts to Nami, who was finding out the map in the basement, but it was in Morgan's office. Also, the Marine had seen him because he was the same person whose uniform she had stolen, but she didn't allow him to do anything and knocked him down with her fighting skills. Further, Luffy arrived here who had listened everything, so they decided to work together, but they weren't crew. On the way, they met with Morgan, whom she had fooled easily, and snatched the keys to the office. Finding out the office, they searched the map, which had been exposed when Luffy touched the weapon. It was a locker, and she tried to open it. But Morgan realized the pirates were here who were none other than this red-headed girl. However, Morgan banged on the door, and Luffy tried to pull the locker with his flexible hand. The safe had separated from the floor, but they fell from the window due to his flexibility, and plenty of soldiers were ready to beat them. In contrast, they knocked them down, and Morgan arrived, whose body was too strong. Luckily, Roronoa Zoro also arrived to help them. Roronoa Zoro and Luffy teach him lessons with fantastic coordination. They were about to escape from here in the boat by carrying the locker when Morgan's son arrived, but he was fainted by Kobe, who had decided to stay here to follow his dream. By saying goodbye, they set off on their journey. Apart from this, another head of Marine was updated about the Grand Line map, so he moved their ship to this place. Another pirate was also informed of the incident and planned to get it back. In flashback, Luffy was practicing his new skill of Devil Fruit. Shank arrived and revealed they would locate One Piece, and they will not be returned. Listening to this, he was upset. Aside from this, Nami had opened the locker with close observation. Even Luffy was making noise, but she had done a great job. She also told them about the Grand Line when they heard a voice and realized Marine had arrived and red smoke had made them faint. Before losing consciousness, Luffy didn't forget to consume the map. When they awoke, they were in a wooden box, and they took their weapons. They are worried about the map, but Luffy calms them because the map is in a safe place. Just then, the wooden box opened, and Buggy arrived, who was a pirate and had imprisoned the people of this island. They are all puppets in Buggy's hand, who forced them to laugh at his lame jokes. Buggy, who had already listened to the map, inquired from Luffy about it. Luffy and Buggy wanted to be king of pirates and have a Grand Line map. Nima proved brilliant and threw Luffy's cap up, and Luffy caught his cap by expanding his hand. She tried to escape but was stunned by the devastation of the island. She was taken back and was on Buggy's mercy. Buggy asked them to throw in the green room as they were not ready to discuss the map. On Shell's Island, Vice Admiral Garp arrived, who had captured the king of pirate Gold Roger. Morgan was bragging about his power, but Garp knew what had happened. Also, he looked at Kobe, who looked suspicious to him. Apart from this, Roronoa Zoro was hanging from the board, and Nami was caged. But she had found a stick through which she could open the lock, but she required time. Also, he listens to yelling at Luffy because Buggy is torturing him by stretching his body from 4 sides. Even though he was in pain, he smiled, and Buggy looked at his hat. He understood it belonged to Shanks. Shanks and Buggy were both friends, but he accused him of being jealous, which wasn't true. Buggy spoke ill about him, which was intolerable. Further, he asked someone to stretch his body until it turned into pieces, but this commoner refused. In anger, Buggy caught a child he wanted to kill at Luffy's place, but Luffy became ferocious and freed himself from the ropes. Also, he punches him by expanding his hand, but it's useless. Although his head had split off, his head rejoined his body. It revealed that Buggy also had eaten devil fruit and his body was a weapon. He made him faint by creating a red smoke through his split hand. On the other hand, she was trying to open the lock, but Kabaji had arrived and wanted revenge on Roronoa Zoro. Roronoa Zoro was responsible for his brother's death, and he started playing with him by giving a circle to the board where he was hanging. Not only this, he was throwing a knife at him. Moreover, Garp called Kobe, which compelled him to tell about his friends. He had no choice, so he revealed and decided not to support Pirate because they were Moran's enemy. In the past, when the same scoundrel arrived, Luffy humiliated him. Consequently, This pirate started strangling him when Shank came and started beating the opponents. Shank could endure his insult, but couldn't let anyone hurt his mates. When they had tasted the dust of their rivals, they found Luffy was missing. Apart from this, Luffy was in a tank where water was falling through the pipe. Luffy is always terrified of water, and he uses his weakness to know the location of the Grand Line's map. Also, Buggy told him that his friends wouldn't arrive to rescue him, so he should tell him. And as a reward, he promised to make him the right hand of his team. Luffy declined his offer, and Buggy turned on the tap and water reached his neck. In the past, scoundrels had taken Luffy to the sea, and they were in the middle of the sea. Just then, a monster turned their ship, and Luffy drowned, but Shank arrived and saved him at the right time. Also, the monster came and was in front of Shank, but he wasn't scared and ordered him to get lost. According to the order, he had moved from him, and Luffy embraced him. Soon, he realized that Shank had lost his arm because of him. Nevertheless, Roronoa Zoro was still on board, and Kabaji threw knives at him. Luckily, Nami had opened the lock, and she kicked Kabaji, and Roronoa Zoro threw him to the ground. They arrived at Luffy, who was drowning in the water, and pointed at his friends. Nami threw the stick at Luffy's tank, and the tank broke. Luffy was freed, and Roronoa Zoro swung his swords and chopped his body. But they were not familiar with his ability, in which he could rejoin his body. He used his body as a weapon and bashed them to the ground. It's Luffy's turn to show his skills. He punched, which had made a hole in his stomach, but it had rejoined. Luffy looked around and noticed boxes. He had got an idea. He asked his friends to put all his body pieces into boxes, and they started throwing them into the boxes. Only his head and foot remained together, and Luffy threw them away with his punch. Before going from there, he didn't forget to free the commoners who thought they would become his prisoners. But Luffy was different from them. He demanded nothing. Aside from this, Garp announced that he was about to destroy the dream of Pirated, who wanted to go to the Grand Line, and Kobe would help him in this expedition. Also, Morgan was bound with the rope because he couldn't do his duty. Also, they offered him food as gratitude, but Luffy only took one piece because he knew they needed more than him. In the past, Shank had given Luffy his hat by saying this hat was his whole world, and Luffy also loved this hat a lot. In fighting with Buggy, his hat needed maintenance, and Nima fixed it because she knew this hat was a treasure for him. Later, she went to her room, called someone, and informed them that she had found a map. Subscribe to see more video like this. Hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching.